Alright, so one of the repairs that I wanted to do on this deck is actually reseal the gearbox. So one of the things that I noticed when I was taking this deck on and off is the fact that there seems to be some oil on the deck shell, which means that typically either something on the tractor is dripping oil or the gearbox is dripping oil. Now, obviously I've already removed the gearbox. That's actually very easy to do. It is a roll pin to take the drive shaft off. So I've actually already got the drive shaft sitting over there. I completely forgot to take a video of all this. To take the actual gearbox off, basically what you have to do is you have to release the tension on the deck belt. That's easy to do. You just run it over one of the pulleys. That'll be perfectly fine. And there's four locations that the deck box or the gearbox is held down to the deck. The first two are those two studs right there, and then there's two carriage bolts here in the back. The carriage bolts come in from behind, and the nuts go on the back. Those are both 15 millimeters. The next thing we're going to do is I got to take the sheave off the bottom of the gearbox, because if you don't take the sheave off, you're not going to get it off this plate. So what I've already done is I've already pounded out that roll pin right there. The roll pin is actually sitting right there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this up on the table. Probably the easiest thing to do, or first thing I'm going to try, is to pull off the pulley with a gear puller. If that doesn't work, we'll have to come back and reevaluate it. So let me get the camera set up. So now that we've got the gearbox up on the table, you can see that there's a lot of oil or gear oil in this particular case around here. And you can look back there underneath it, and you can definitely tell that the gear oil is coming from the seal on the bottom of the gearbox. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to reseal this gearbox. First thing I have to do is I got to pull this pulley off. So I'm going to hook up a puller, and after I hook up the puller, hopefully it comes off. If it doesn't, we're going to have to regroup and see what we can figure out. Now, a lot of times what will happen is this pulley is loose in some cases. If it's not loose, in this case it is not loose. You know, start over. You want to inspect the shaft really well. One other thing that commonly happens is this pulley will break, and there's actually a couple of different replacements that have become available through Deere. I've also seen a taper lock pulley before, and I'm trying to think of another one. I've also seen a couple farmer repairs where they actually taken and put some shims in there and a couple other things. So this is one of those problem areas on these 420, 430s that tend to be a little bit of a pain. But in the end, we'll have a nice resealed gearbox. So let me get the puller up there. Alright, so we're going to see if this will work. No idea if it will or not. So I've got my puller on there, and let's go to town and see if it'll actually come off. I'm probably going to have to go get the impact here. Actually, I think it is moving. I'm shocked. Now keep in mind that this pulley is not on here with a lot of tension. It does turn over rather freely, as it should. And so I'm not too concerned about it, the way it's turning and everything. Sorry for my elbow. This is just the best way I can get in there. So now that it's started, we're good to go. It takes a little effort to begin with. And if I had, you know, clamped down the gearbox, that would even be better. One thing, you know, if you don't do this kind of stuff on a regular basis, you know, you can grab these tools from, you know, most auto parts stores will lend these tools out, you know, just for a deposit if you buy a couple parts from them. So there's a pulley, and so the pulley is good to go. So now that the pulley is good to go, we can take the deck gearbox off of the mount. Now to do that, we just have to take those, there's 4 bolts on there. Some of the early 420, 430s had Curtis gearboxes. In this particular case, this is a Peerless gearbox. I thought it was a Curtis at first because Curtis will look quite a bit different. But some of the early 420s and 430s, some of the decks, I think up to about 85, 86, one side of this mount right here actually had a triangle piece come up, and they went into one of the top mounting bolts on these gearboxes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the gearbox off of there now that we have the pulley off, and I'll go ahead and we'll get all the gear oil drained out, and then we'll take the gearbox apart and we'll figure out exactly what parts we need, and then hopefully get the parts ordered, and we can put it back together here in about a week or so when I have time to run by Deere and grab the parts. So let me get all that set up. Alright, so here's a gearbox. Peerless gearbox from Clinton, Michigan. You can see there on the very bottom of the gearbox all of the oil and everything that's causing us the problem, the reason we're doing this. The only last things that we have to do, or that I have to do, I don't suppose anybody's going to come and help me. The only other thing that I have to do is take out the keys here. I'm getting my gloves on. And so once I take the keys out, then we can drain it and do stuff like that. So what I use, and I've talked about this before, is a brass hammer is an amazing thing. So are brass punches. You can do stuff without damaging the metal. So in this case, make sure you can see that well. Naturally, it's not going to be very cooperative for me. I don't know why that's being such a pain. I wonder if this one down here is such a pain. No. Comes right out. I don't know why this one's being so difficult. So let me work on this one a little bit. We'll kind of go from there. Alright, so the next part is, and I've already got this loose, so we're going to pull the drain plug out, and we're going to drain what's left of the hydraulic fluid out. Now, one really important thing is it is 45 degrees in the shop right now, so the gear oil that's in this gear case is going to be very, very cold. Now what I've done is I've just got this set up over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go do some other stuff, and I'm just going to let this drain for a while. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to take it apart. Now remember, in this particular case, there's a shaft. This shaft runs from here to this plate on the top. This plate up here. And then there's another shaft that comes in. There's no plate on the back of this case. This is the bottom of the case. And so what's happening is this shaft is running here. The only really things that we should need to replace is this seal and this seal. Theoretically, and there's a couple O-rings and maybe a shim in here, things like that if we can't salvage it, whatnot. So I'm going to let this sit here and drain, mostly because I've got other stuff to do, and then once it's drained a little bit, we'll go ahead and take our covers off, pull everything apart, get it all nice and cleaned up, and then from there we can decide what parts need to be replaced, if it's all salvageable, things like that. So that's where we're at on this project.